Alright, so today I'm going to talk about kindergarten with a kid. Now, this is quite a milestone, especially for someone who has avoidant personality disorder, because it's the first time sometimes you're absolutely forced to conform to community standards with your child. I haven't talked about going to the doctor yet, have I? I'm going to have to look back and see. Sort of losing track. Anyway, but kindergarten specifically, first of all, you have to go, and usually you have to, well, in the United States, you have to do testing to prove your child is ready to go. My son went when he was 4. He just made the cutoff. And considering he's autistic, I'm surprised he made it through the socialization process. I'm also really surprised for the same reason that he passed kindergarten. They didn't keep him back. It's really common if a child does not socialize correctly more than their education, they will keep them back in kindergarten in the United States. Anyway, so that's the first thing is you have to go through this testing, which is really easy and it's no big deal. I've yet to find a person who didn't completely stressed out about if they have avoidant personality disorder, because it's being judged. And and it's almost impossible. This is huge. It'll come up again and again. You feel like when your child is judged that you are being judged, and that you know that as far as looking at how well the child socialized, that's you know, a reflection on the parent. It's not, well, I don't know, in other places where we started, and of course my son is kind of older, maybe they've changed it. They don't have requirements like you need to be able to spell your name, you need to be able to write the letters, something like that. You know, that's still a little later. So you don't really have to worry about does my child academically have you know, all the stuff they need. They have to, but they have to be able to be social. And this is here it is. This is when you have avoidant personality disorder. You judge yourself. You think that you don't have any social skills, therefore your child won't have any social skills. So you have to make sure that they can follow orders. You have to make sure that they can you know, that they can basically conform, you know, that they understand rules like there's, you know, a certain time that you eat and that's okay, and you don't, you know, demand that you eat all the time. They have to understand the rudimentary skills of getting along. And again, you know, this is where the avoidant person's like, oh my God, well, I didn't do enough of that. Well, your child had to get along with you. I was told again and again and again that my son preferred his teachers to other students. And I don't know if that was because I'm avoidant and so he wasn't having, again, he was in daycare. So, I mean, he was around other kids. So, that's probably more of the autism than me being avoidant, that he preferred adults to children. I don't know, but there we go. You know, I mean, this was 12 years ago, and I'm still wondering what was my impact. How can I blame myself for what the experience my son had when I wasn't even there? This is what happens when you have avoidant personality disorder. You have to deal with a teacher. You generally don't interact with the teacher that much, usually. I mean, I was absolutely freaked out the first time that the teacher called me at my house. I got calls directly at night from the teacher when he was in kindergarten only. And it was a socialization thing that she would, like, give me tips. Literally, she was like, well, you know, I think maybe he's tired and maybe he needs to sleep more. And I was mortified. Actually, that was not the case. The problem was he was bored. But, you know, whatever. I will conform to whatever the teacher tells me to conform to, and I will take her suggestions to heart. That's difficult. Knowing that your child could be, it's possible, could be disciplined by, you know, the principal, etc. I mean, I had to deal with, because again, he's autistic, and he had his little autistic moments, which people don't like me using that phrase. But, you know, he was sometimes disruptive, and so we'd get calls. I'd get calls. You have to cope with that 100%. You have to cope with the fact that if your child gets sick during the day, you have to go pick them up at school, which means that you have to deal with your boss, maybe in ways that you never had to before. These are all major stresses. However, it's also fantastic to see your child grow up. So, and it's usually cheaper because you don't have to pay daycare as much. So there are some positives to going to school. And of course you could homeschool. This is when I would say no. You might have the impulse to homeschool because then you don't have to interact with the school, but then this is when your child is going to get socialized, when they are interacting at a school situation. You can supplement, but I would strongly suggest sending your child to a school, either public school or private school, whichever you decide, but then they're interacting with other people and they're really forced to learn all the things socially that maybe you're incapable of doing as a person with avoidant personality disorder. I have never heard of somebody with avoidant personality disorder who homeschooled their child. And I suspect, because that's kind of like a trendy thing now, there's a significant percent, like my son goes to a charter school. He doesn't go to a regular high school. People choose alternate schools, and I'm totally down with that, but I have never heard of an homeschool child, and that's probably with the parents who have avoidant personality disorder, and that's probably why, because they know that there is a socialization aspect that they cannot do as a person with avoidant personality disorder. They're very aware of it, they're very guilty about it, but school really does help with that. So it is incredibly stressful. I know I said in a previous video, and it's completely dead honest. My son had, like, he was cool. You know, he'd been to kindergarten. I mean, he'd been to preschool, and he'd been in daycare, and he kind of knew what's going on. I literally broke out in hives and a rash over the idea of my son starting kindergarten. And at the time, my coworkers were like, "Yep, you have the worst case of mummyitis I've ever seen." But I got through it, and it was great. So, yeah, it's a huge, massive milestone. It's incredibly stressful. It's great for the child to learn social skills. It's actually, I don't want to admit this, it's actually really good as a person with avoidant personality disorder to handle these specific social skills, because you do have to be nice to the teacher. You do have to show up at ice cream socials and recitals and parties and crap like that, and they do recommend volunteering. I did not volunteer at the school. I didn't volunteer much at his school. We volunteer a lot, but we don't volunteer at the school. So I didn't do that. They give you a lot of pressure about it, though. Join the PTA, do this, do that, do the other. And you really have to sort of cull those moments. Just like I said before about when my son wanted to join the Cub Scouts, and I was like, you can't do it right now. You really do have to pick and choose what you're going to do, because you have to go to parent-teacher conferences. But you don't have to do every stupid thing, like book fairs and crap like that. You don't have to do that. Don't be pressured to do that. Pick and choose. Do the most important things. Pay attention. If your child is really having this problem, struggling in school, this is when you suck it up. What I would use, I've talked about this before, I used the avoidant anger as a fuel. I mean, I wasn't like raging maniac. I wasn't excessively rude. I was very blunt when there was an issue with my child, and I would get it taken care of. Like, because he started having IEPs. I'll talk about that later. And IEP meetings, which are like the worst thing I've ever, I mean, even now, they're great. We go in, and my son's last IEP, this is so cheesy. I swear to God, this is the truth. My son does so well. The therapy he goes through is unbelievable. He does so well that the teachers were tearing up in his IEP meeting. That's how good they are. I still hate them. I will talk about them later. It's a completely separate situation. But you do have to deal with all this new stuff. It's very hard. You've got to remember to do self-care as much as possible. That's really when I started to curb the relatives, ignoring them. I mean, like, for instance, we have family parties. They're almost like reunions. We have them at Christmas, and we have them on the 4th of July. And when he started kindergarten, that's when I started stopping going to those. We are required as a family, blah, blah, blah. We're unbelievable pressure as a family. That's when I started going only one a year instead of both. This is the type of thing that you really need to do, because you have to be there for your child, and you have to deal with the teachers. But it's okay, and you'll get through it. And you'll learn these coping skills that because you have to interact. It's different from having a boss, similar to having a boss. So you'll learn coping skills that you have never picked up before, and you'll get through it. You really will. So that's my take on kindergarten.